Hi, folks. Welcome to Lassoing Leadership, the podcast. I'm your host, Garth Nichols.
And I'm Jason Rogers. Lassoing Leadership is a result of our love of leadership and how Ted Lasso tackles some really tough issues. We talk for about 20 minutes about our favorite characters of the episode, leadership nuggets of gold. We also take a stab at renaming each episode just for fun. And then we always leave you with a leadership challenge based on our learnings.
Yeah, and this podcast allows us to bring in these leadership lessons and challenges to light from the episodes and learn from them through discussions with incredible people like my co-host, Jason.
Oh, thanks, Garth.
And today we also welcome Carla DeFilippo.
Welcome to the show, Carla.
Carla's a great friend of mine, a longtime colleague as well. But even if I didn't know her as well as I do, Jason, I would be fighting hard to have her on this podcast. She is
amazing.
An incredible educator, coach, and athlete in her own right. As an ultimate player, she started her own team for youth development, her own club team for youth development. She's coached at the highest level as well. And I see her in amongst this school creating a culture of where young women thrive as athletes and can see themselves as athletes. She's all about people development. She does it with passion, compassion, and a great respect for competition.
That's very nice.
Yeah. She believes that competition brings out the best in others. And when it doesn't, it's just growth. It's learning. So it's a win-win or win-learn situation for Carla, except we do have a phrase here at Haverhill College called staff don't lose. And I attribute that to our athletic director, Carla. So it's great to have you on the show. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more to our listeners?
Sure. It's great to be here. Thank you, Garth, for that introduction. And thank you, Jason, for having me on your podcast. Like Garth said, my background is actually in competitive swimming, and I swam at McMaster. Loved sports. It really naturally led me into a career in athletics and in phys ed. And then once my swimming career was over, I discovered ultimate Frisbee, instantly fell in love with it, discovered that there were world championships and national teams. I was in the world games and just committed a lot of my time to try to make those national teams. And then once sort of, you get a little bit older and you can't quite perform to the level that you want to, quickly turned to coaching, seeing that there was a void there in ultimate as a new sport to have really committed, dedicated coaches. And then worked my way up to coaching the national team and currently coaching the women's national team, heading to Worlds in Australia in August. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Well, Carla, before we get any farther, this show's about soccer, but I want to talk about ultimate for a minute. What's your favorite thing about ultimate? What do you love most about the sport?
Most people would expect me to say spirit of the game, and spirit of the game is definitely a highlight of ultimate. I love that the sport doesn't work unless you respect your opponent. Like you have to have that respect or it doesn't work. Like you can't cheat. It just falls apart. And at the highest levels of the sport, it's done really well. And so you could see the potential for other sports to get there. And I do love that part of ultimate. But for me, it really is the athleticism that the sport brings. You need to have speed. You need to be able to jump. You need to be able to change direction really quickly. You need to be able to dive to catch Frisbees. It really is quite an athletic, beautiful sport. And so that is what attracted me to it and what I love the most about it.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Carla, have you heard this podcast before? Have you listened to it before?
I have. I've heard of it from you.
Yeah.
And when I was invited to come onto the podcast, I did listen to an episode to try to understand how it flowed. So I did listen to one episode, and it was a good episode.
Great. Well, I hope you like it. Hopefully you listen to more as well. Okay. So, Jason, what have you been hearing from our other listeners other than our one-time listener, Carla?
All right, Carla. Well, welcome to the show, and I'm glad you listened to it once, and maybe this will be your second one when you listen back if you like the sound of your voice. I don't know, Garth. Do you have time for a quick story? It's just a story about a listener.
Yeah, never stopped you before, buddy.
Okay, so this is really quick, but not long ago we onboarded a new member of our leadership team. Let's call her Nicole. Yesterday we had one of our first strategic meetings, and she arrived with a box of. Can you guess, Garth? Can you guess what she brought?
Calgary beef jerky.
Yeah, right. No. Good one. Biscuits. But you know what was even more delicious than those biscuits, Garth?
I don't know. What?
Her curiosity, really. And, she asked fabulous questions about what drove drove an incredible meeting. And in the end, we talked a lot about Lasso, believe it or not, the podcast and the kind of relationships we found formed when we stop and connect. And yeah, she said she listened to the podcast, and she's listened a few times, Carla. So she's got a couple on you.
Nice.
What about you, Garth? You get any listener feedback over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think people were really moved by our previous episode, which was about saying goodbye, offboarding in a whole bunch of different ways. So I really appreciate those who reached out with some of their own stories and some of their own appreciations about that, and your vulnerability as well, Jason.
Thanks.
Really well received. So appreciate that. But a friend of mine from Royal Roads University reached back out to me, Nathan, and he's like, I can't believe you didn't talk about the way that I say goodbye, like the way that Nathan does.
Yeah.
And at the end of our experience at Royal Roads, which was very intense, we had cards all laid out. And we were chatting, Nathan and I were chatting, and he says, I only say 2 words when a colleague leaves or when I'm leaving. He says, bye-bye. And he says it like that. And some people would be like, well, that's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But then he explained to me all the things that are infused into that one moment where he says, bye-bye. And it's quite moving, because he makes sure that meaning is, that import is delivered to them prior to just saying those words.
Yeah.
So it's not just that moment of saying the words, it's everything that leads up to it. So I really appreciated Nathan reminding me of that. So
I'm glad the Royal Roads crew is still listening. That's good news.
Some of them are. Yeah, they're fantastic. They're fantastic. So yeah. So let's move on.
Cool. Let's get into the summary here, Garth. I'm going to hit it in 30 seconds or so. This is season 2 finale, and it really doesn't disappoint. This episode is called Inverting the Pyramid of Success. Now, Richmond focuses on a critical match, which they need to at least tie for promotion. But outside that, there's so much that takes place, and here are just a few of the highlights. Ted's panic attack is reported in the local press, causing quite a stir. Jamie Tart actually goes ahead and apologizes to Roy for coming on to Keeley, and Roy somewhat unexpectedly accepts this apology. Lasso apologizes to the team for not being honest about his panic attacks in a really interesting moment in the dressing room. Roy Kent tells Keeley he forgave Jamie, and Keeley, I think, is as surprised as anybody. At the same time, we see Roy has been cut out of the Vanity Fair profile. He opts to support Keeley and tells her she looks powerful and gorgeous. But internally, I don't think he's feeling quite the same way. He needs support, so he appeals to the Diamond Dogs, and there's a great moment there. Rupert ends up buying the rival team, West Ham United. Richmond ties the promotion game, and that's enough to advance. Ted returns to the dressing room post-victory to see his Believe sign ripped into small pieces and put on his desk. It's a moment, isn't it? Nate's conflict with Ted escalates, leading to his departure from the team. Ted addresses his panic attack head on in the post-game press conference with everybody, which I think is a moment of leadership worth examining in its own right. Sam decides to stay at Richmond. Sam has some really great moments in this episode as well. Roy Kent and Keeley break up at the end of it, and Nate is introduced as the new manager of West Ham. That's Rupert's new club. There's a lot going on, closing up season 2 and setting up for season 3. So there you have it, Garth.
It is quite a doozy of an episode, particularly when Ted addresses his panic attacks. Like if you haven't watched that, or if you have, go back, remind yourself about that scene because it's pretty powerful. But that's well done, Jason. Lots of things that Carla can pick up on. So let's start with you. Who was your favorite character?
There are so many excellent characters in the TV show in general. But in this one in particular, I'm going to mention Sam because I think it's underrated the pressure Sam would have to make that decision to go to his home club, right? Like where he's from. There's a lot of money, fame, all of those things. And I think the approach that Sam took to really try to be like introverted with it, like to really try to think like inside to himself, to be like, what is it do I actually want for once, instead of being like, what does my family want? What do these other people want? I think that's really difficult to do. And really, like Sam, he's almost perfect. So you kind of hate him in a sense, because like, does that person even really exist? But, because he's a great teammate, right? Very supportive. He's an excellent footballer, And then he's like, on top of this, he wants to give back to his community. He's a favorite for the fans. Anyway, so to me, Sam's perfect. Like as a coach is like exactly who you want on your team. And I just want to give him props for really trying to be selfish in this moment, to be like, what do I, Sam, want in my life? And listening to that.
Oh, I love that.
Carla. Maybe it's like, she'll try to be like Sam for a week and see how that feels. You're right. He is almost perfect.
It'll probably feel really good.
Yeah, I think so,
like,
right?
Also, you don't have he doesn't have envy. You probably would be really happy for an entire week, celebrating other people and yourself.
Leadership challenge accepted, Carla. We're done. Just kidding.
I really like what you brought out about Sam too, because it's when he is doing that introspection, he's actually really examining his values. And when you examine your values, you actually carve your own path to what you think is success. So here he is being pressured by all these outward sort of conspicuous consumption experiences of success, and he's really questioning that. I think that's important for all of our athletes, especially when we see things like the PGA versus Live Tour, who's going, why they're going. Sports washing is now a thing in our world that we have to be cognizant of. And so who are those people, who are those athletes who can be role models because they live their values? It's really interesting stuff.
And one more thing too, I want to shout out Sam's dad. I don't know if you remember the episode, they have a conversation, and I think it's just great parenting to not try to solve your kid's problem and try not to put your own values on your child. Like, you want to put your values on your children as they, grow up and stuff. But his response, I think, was something like, you will know.
Yeah.
Like, you will know what you want to do and then do it. And
I think he said, listen to yourself and I mean, that I agree. His dad was amazing in that moment. You could see Sam taking that moment to step back and think and reflect, and he just kind of watches the world go around him for a moment. Yeah. I love that. It was a good moment.
Jason, I'm going to preempt you on this one because my favorite character in this episode is Roy Kent.
Uh-oh. Really? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. But now
welcome aboard.
I will defer to you. You speak so eloquently about Roy, but I thought that he was an absolute gem. When you look at over the last, this whole arc of these 2 seasons, how he has developed and his ability to identify who he is, the way that he supports Keely, to then go to the Diamond Dogs and be vulnerable in those spaces. I thought it was just brilliant. And I think that's setting him up really well for season 3 to become who he will become in season 3.
Yeah, I think as a secondary character, he continues to steal the show. He's kind of behind the scenes, pushing forward plot lines and also pushing forward leadership and development. And, I could pick out 10 different times where he shines in this episode. Like you said, Garth, asking for help from the Diamond Dogs in a really authentic way. And, even the reflection of that when he sits back and goes, hey, there's no resolution here. We just talked about it. And you can see that he's feeling better, and I think that was pretty amazing, accepting apologies from Nate and Jamie, or even handling Keely's rejection. He really goes a long way to set the stage for he and Keely to be successful and take a little bit of time off before her job change. But, I don't know how he did it in that moment to be so level. But instead of all those, I'd like to just focus on a couple of words that he said that may have gone unmissed if you're just watching quickly or watching casually. When the team's losing 2-0, they go back to the dressing room, the coaches gather in the coaches room, and Ted is contemplating whether to stick with the false 9 or to change the strategy. And he asks the coaches what he should do, and they all kind of sit back and contemplate. And then Roy Kent simply says, ask them. Right. And I think it's those 2 words where, ask them, I think, is missed so often when we're thinking about change in our organizations. Do we stop and ask the people who are actually doing it or impacted by it? And instead, we just forge ahead with changes that we presume are better for everybody else. And so, I think it's an ultimate coach move, Carla. So anyways, I think that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. Roy Kent's the man, right, Garth?
Yeah, and I don't know what episode Carla went back and listened to, but we did have our senior girls basketball team on this podcast, and they spoke about that too, like the ability to actually make some calls on the floor, which is really empowering, and it's a huge team builder too. But yeah, on coaching, I love this episode because it focuses so much on coaching. Even what you identified it from Sam's dad, that's coaching, right? Like you will know, trust your gut. So anyway, I thought we could ask you a couple of questions about coaching.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's go.
A bit of a rapid fire here. I'll start, and then Jason, you can throw some questions at Carla too. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So Carla, how would you define your coaching style?
It's so hard to define it like with one word or like one style. I think it shifts and it depends on like what team you're coaching. So like coaching a national team is very different than coaching, the high school team at Havergal or even like a junior club program. But again, you're always like, the end result is that you want to win, right? Like as a coach, you want to win. You don't always win, and it's fine, but you always go with the approach, what is going to be the best method to get the very best out of your athletes so that they could contribute to winning. And so what it comes down to is really knowing who you're coaching, because some athletes respond different to different types of coaching. But saying that, the best piece of advice I ever got at a very young age was that you have to be your authentic self when you coach. So you'll see like videos of like maybe a really aggressive, like yeller type of coach. And maybe that works for that person because that's kind of their personality. And then they've developed a whole coaching system around it that players are attracted to. And I'll be like, oh, that person's successful, I'm going to be like them. But like, I'm not a yeller. Like, I don't like to yell. So if you try to actually be that person, you're going to fail miserably at it because it's not who you actually are, So I think there's every single possible personality could be like a very good coach. You just have to own it and then hone it, like work on it, and then do that to the best of your ability, but like be yourself, like be who
I love that, Carla. And I think so be authentic and be agile is what I'm hearing you say. I mean, they're kind of diametrically opposed in some respects, but still so valuable. One time, another head of school said to me that every year's a new season or every year's a new chapter. And similar to what you're saying is you've got to take what you've got in front of you and work with it and being adaptable as a coach, same as being a leader in a school. Would you say that's reflective of your overall philosophy of coaching?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So when we talk about coaching, talk about leadership, I want to ask, do you believe that coaches make or break a team, or is it really in the hands of the players once they're on the field, like in the Lasso moment where they run the trick play and Ted stands back and says, they're really doing it. They're doing it on their own. How impactful is the coach, and when is their impact probably most present is the question.
Maybe I'm biased because I am a coach, but I do think the coach does have a huge impact on the team. So even your example there, like Ted Lasso stepping back, is a coaching decision.
Right.
So that decision to not have ego as a coach to try to insert yourself into their success maybe is also what led to their success.
Right.
So I think coaches do make or break teams. And so that's exciting because you have this opportunity to make teams successful because you have that impact. But it's also terrifying because if you make a mistake or do something a little differently, it's like, oh, did I cause that? But that is coaching.
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting that even in the passive moments, as you've explained, Carla, like you're still leading.
Yes.
Like you're choosing to be passive in those moments and continue to lead.
And giving ownership to others too. If you have like assistant coaches that, like, if you could take your ego aside and know that like, okay, this assistant coach brings something better than I could bring, and give them that ownership and not have like the ego to be like, I need to always be the lead is great. And then
as a coach in Ultimate, are you active? Like, are you on the sidelines calling plays and stuff like that?
That's what I tend to choose, the sports where you are more active and like impactful. So I'm like, I don't know what that says about me, but like volleyball, I think, like the way you run certain systems, or like you could be up and yelling and sort of like directing like where to be, or like where, like you could kind of see how a game happens. In Ultimate, it's very similar. Like you have playbooks, you create offensive pull plays, different types of defenses. So you could watch a game and be like, okay, we're going to run this type of zone, or we're going to do this type of defense because this is what I'm seeing happening. So like, I like having that impact. So
I think, it makes me reflect, because I was also a rowing coach. And when you push the boat off the dock and they head to the start line, which is like 500, 1,000 meters away, you're like, I'm done here. I'm just like a spectator in the sport. But I too have gravitated to basketball coaching because it is so you feel like you're a part of the game.
The coach is huge
Yeah.
for the game of basketball.
And because this episode is dropping in March, I just put a plug out there for March Madness, both the men's and the women's tournaments. Because the way that they are produced when you watch them, it is a beautiful sort of visual essay on coaching and different coaching styles. And I love how you said it. Those coaches have a style. They are responding to their team. But you learn so much about different aspects that you can sort of cherry pick to help your own coaching approach too. All right, next question. What is a coaching or a leading moment that you're really proud of?
It's hard to pick like one. Like there's not like a specific. Okay, so no, I lied. There is a specific moment. So, okay, you know how with athletes they could talk about being in the zone, right? And so you talk a lot about that with athletes, about trying to get to the zone where everything's just flowing perfectly, everything feels easy. I believe that there's a zone in coaching too, and I've experienced it only twice in my entire life. And the first one was in 2017. Coaching the Toronto Sixers, which is a women's elite club team. And we're at Canadian Nationals and we're facing off against Vancouver Traffic, who is the leading, like one forever, like best team in Canada, like for many, many years. And we're this like the team started in 2016. We're this new Toronto team full of super athletic, like people, which was amazing. But, we went into it. It was great. There was no expectation, and we're in the national final in front of a big crowd and I think we're up by 1 or 2 points. We're just like, there's this flow, like you could just feel that it's working. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but this horrible thing happens to us where it's in ultimate, it's called like Callahan. So what that means is we have the disc near our own end zone and we throw it to what should be someone else on our team, but the other team intercepts it in the end zone and it's an immediate point because they caught it in their own end zone. And it's like usually like a huge crush, like shift in energy. You're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. This is horrible. We're going to lose, like momentum shift. The crowd is like cheering. They're all cheering for them. Because the person that caught it was like a beloved ultimate player. Like she is awesome. She's a great person. Her name's Terry from Calgary, actually, from Alberta.
Cool.
Anyway, and so like you cannot, you're kind of happy we're great, But like I remember thinking to myself, okay, well that happened and that's a point, and now they're running on and we got to play offense, like the next point. And I just remember like going out there, calling the line, calling the play, and it was just like unfazed. Our whole team was unfazed by it.
Amazing.
And then we just played. Like we just went out there and played. Like we didn't let this thing happen. And then we ended up winning, which was amazing. It was like a national championship, knocked off the top team. And in hindsight, reflecting back to it, that's when you kind of like snap out of it, right? Because you're in the zone and you're just like, it was so weird that like when that happened, no one was fazed by it. It was like, hey, well, we got to play an offensive point now.
Yeah.
And so that
awesome.
like, I think of like those kind of moments of like when you could just persevere through a tough time and you just play. Like the best teams, they just play.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what happened. It's like next point, next shot, they just play.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Carla, I think, we haven't talked about the state of flow at all in this podcast. And I think it's something we could really examine because I think you've hit on something really true. I think in coaching, in athletics, in creativity and productivity and, leadership, you do achieve the state of flow on occasion. I've had it a few times in my teaching career where I went back and that was a day. Like I really knew what I was doing. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens sometimes. So trying to achieve that state of flow is really, really interesting for us to further contemplate. I have one final question before we move into the last two segments of the episode. As a professional coach, somebody who's reached the highest levels, how would you rate Ted Lasso's approach to coaching?
It's so interesting you ask that. I actually like get frustrated by him as a coach because
as a coach and as a player, or just as like watching him.
I think as a coach and a player, I'm not sure if that style would work for me because I do think he's a great people person. I think he would be a good assistant coach, I guess, in that way. And he's smart in that he brings a team. I think he could recognize his weaknesses. So he like bringing Nate on was like very smart because obviously he wasn't a strategic mastermind of football, right? But I think there were moments where I was just like, I feel like you could be doing a bit more strategically to learn the game to actually like help them be more successful, like actually on the field with skill. Like there are a lot of, you do have to work with people, and team culture and community is paramount. Like that,
Yeah.
I'm not underrated that. And he's obviously extremely good at developing that. But at the end of the day, you have to have strategy and, good practice plans and routines and things like that to be successful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You're
I
the
do
first
like him, but
first guest who's come on and bagged Ted Lasso. I appreciate that. Not only you're not a listener, but you also hate on Lasso. So
I do
good to have you on the
like
show,
him.
Carla.
Yeah.
I do like him. I think he's good. But yeah,
He has a role.
He has
Maybe
a
it's another, right? Like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. One thing I'm listening to as I listen to you is that, you can replace the word coach with leader in a lot of these things, like be your authentic self, ask that, like all these great pieces, which you pull out as a coach, you also can apply that as a leader too. But anyway, let's jump in. What would you rename this episode, Carla?
Okay, this was a tough question. I really thought about this. So, and I'm going a little troll Cyndi Lauper. I call it True Colors.
Okay, tell us more.
Because I think everyone's sort of true colors came out. Like Nate lost it, right? Like his kind of, a bit of his true self came out, and like it was frustrating, but in a good way. Like Nate needed to let that go. Yeah. Like he was holding. So a little bit of true colors. Roy Kent, a little bit of true colors came out.
True colors.
Why am I forgetting the star's name? The really good looking one.
Jamie Tart.
Like I feel like, he became like, they're all sort of, they showed a little bit of themselves that we haven't typically seen. So it was like, maybe true colors.
I love that.
Oh, Carla, that's good. Garth, good luck. Why don't you go next? I feel better if you went next. That was an amazing rename though, Carla. Well done.
I'll try this one. I'm going to try, and it focuses on, what happened with Roy, but also focuses on what's happening with Nate and the context of the previous episode and this episode. I'm going to go with Vanities Not Fair.
Ooh.
Vanities.
I like that, Garth. Do you want to explain it, or does it need explanation? That's sharp.
Yeah. Jason, what about you?
I'm going to offer Wouldn't You Believe? A play on Wooden's triangle of success and the belief sign. The big question is, even if other things challenge your faith, your belief in the process, your leadership, your team, will you continue to believe as a leader? But with that, I'm not competing for this. I think Carla's got my vote.
Yeah, I can see them shining through.
Yeah.
Those are too nice.
All right, let's go to leadership challenge. Carla, give us a leadership challenge that's inspired you out of this.
So I think it's come up a little bit in this episode. We talked about it, but the leadership challenge I would have for listeners is that when you're faced with a problem in your workplace or wherever you are coaching or leading or administrating, is that, especially with people, that remember that people come with their best intentions.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare is there a person that wants to sabotage, right? And so coming at it with like, okay, this is the person's best intentions. They're doing their best. How can we work together from that lens versus like, why does this person suck? Which sometimes it's really easy to get to that.
It was a very good reminder.
I think it goes, that's a great leadership challenge accepted. And I think it goes back to something you referenced earlier, which is like your coaching style, you have to respond to the teams. You have to know your team. And you also have to know what you don't know about your team too, right? So best intentions. And when they're not showing up, it's not like as a deficit model. It's like, what can I do to, as a coach or as a leader, to actually be their best selves
and get the best out of them.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I love that. All right. We'd love to hear what other people think about this episode too. So a reminder that if you like this podcast, share it with your friends. Please, please, please share it with your friends. And Jason, do you want to give a little bit of a tease for our next podcast with our special guest?
We've got a special guest all the way from Michigan, another podcast host. And we're breaking down basically season 2 and wrap-up episodes. It's going to be very, very special. David Coffey's our guest. And so really looking forward to dropping that one next week. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Carla, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. An amazing episode, amazing guest. Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
And ultimately, if we're ever going to get Sudeikis on the show, and we're well past episode 25 at this point, we're going to need your support. So if you know Sudeikis or anybody who knows him, give us a call. But with that, Carla, why don't you take us home?
All right. Until next time, keep leading the Lasso way.
Thanks everybody.
Carla. Thanks, everybody.